Karen, not sure how she got here, but she's from Calgary. We're not sure how you got here either, Karen, but welcome. You're in for a treat.
Lots of people from Markham. We should do a group satellite.
I think we actually have a group satellite that's calling in from Interior Health, BC. 10 people. One person signed up and she wanted to bring a group, so 10 people are calling in.
Cool. Ottawa's in the house. You know who I'm waiting to see are the people from Australia who are joining us, and it's got to be midnight in Australia right now.
We had that during our last school.
I know, that's awesome.
And I don't think she missed a single day. That's dedication right there.
Yeah. MVP. Natalie from Mississauga. Can we invite people from a group to future sessions? Yeah, if you want to do group, it really does work kind of better if you each have a chance to have your own individual screen to talk to. Yeah.
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier.
All right, we got 10 o'clock. It's now 10:01.
All right.
I'm going to turn off the jams. I know people will probably still trickle in, but that's okay.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Josh, are you, I imagine, just pulling up the presentation?
You betcha.
All right.
We can see the chat box on my screen. All right. Good morning, everybody. We want to welcome you to Virtual Design School. My name is Josh. I am a designer from Alberta Health Services. And I'm going to be one of your hosts for the next 7 weeks. I'm also hosting with Aaron.
Hi, everyone. I will also be here with Josh, providing color commentary to his very serious business.
It's very serious business.
That's right.
Very serious business. We also have Ali. Ali, if you can give everybody a quick hello.
Hello.
He's going to be our chat box monitor. If you have any questions, concerns, fire them in the box. He's going to connect with you. We also have Shaylin, who's going to be doing that as well. Shaylin, throw a quick shout out.
Hello. Sorry, I was still muted.
That's okay. I threw you under the bus for that one. All right. And we also have Catherine. A quick shout out to her. She's done a lot of design to make these slides look really good because trust me, I am a designer, but not a graphic designer. So I can't make slides look anything near as good as she can. So thank you to her. And of course, a quick shout out to our fearless leader, Marlise, who's done a lot of work just making sure that we can do this for all of you guys today. First off, I want to make sure if you're not on Twitter, please get on. We would love to hear from you guys. This is all about joining in the conversation. We're kind of building a huge community of designers, and we want all of you guys to stay connected. So we've got a hashtag Design School. It may be used before. That's okay. We're going to join up with them too. And then make sure to tag us at Design4AHS. That is our Design Labs Twitter account, because this is all about encouraging conversations and connections. We have a global community here. So I want you guys to kind of type in the chat box for me. What are you curious about? What made you kind of want to sign up for this design school? You know, Aaron and I toyed around with the idea of like, how many participants are we going to get? Let's just throw this out there and see how many people we get to sign up. And we were like, should we get the 100-person one or the 500-person one? So we threw it out. And Aaron, what did you say? Like 72 hours, we had already 100 people sign up.
Yeah, it blew us out of the water too. I mean, we just didn't expect people to sign up so quickly. And so and it made us think, you know, why is design thinking why is it really resonating with people as something that can be used in healthcare?
Yeah, and I think what we noticed as people were signing up and they were connecting with us, there was a huge desire for people to kind of start to do some different change, do things a little bit differently. They wanted to try something new, so they heard design and thought, okay, I'm curious. let's just give this a go. So I want to know what you guys are curious about.
Oh, we got somebody saying, can I teach an old dog new tricks? And I would like to say, yes, you can with design thinking.
We got some great people sharing, Josh, that they wanted to have learning how I can utilize co-design in my projects, and one of my favorite ones, space to learn and grow.
That's fantastic.
Loads of curiosity showing up here.
Yeah. So I want to encourage you guys, continue to be curious. Keep asking questions, connect with us, tweet, send things out. We're going to do our best to connect with every single person who connects with us. All right. So I encourage you to keep doing that throughout all 7 weeks. But now I would like to introduce our speaker for today. We have Zayna Khayat. She's a future strategist with SE Health, and she's a big friend of the lab. We honestly think she's a genius. Her talks are fantastic. If you ever get a chance, go on YouTube. I believe she has a TED Talk that's up there. It's really great. She packs a serious punch with her slide deck, so you're not going to want to miss a thing. So, Zayna.
All right, what an intro. Holy moly. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I think this is an amazing community. I just tweeted a bit about it. All my handles are down there. So I think I'm just going to kind of set the stage, much bigger picture of a bit of this, like why innovation and then where does design fit? I think we need to ground ourselves because it's very easy to get caught up in what, is being called innovation theater, just busy making of just doing stuff that seems innovative, but like we really need to anchor in why. So hopefully this will help kind of set that stage. So just a bit quickly who I am. I saw some dude from Windsor on the list. I'm born and raised in Windsor, Ontario. And I did my undergrad there in the biological sciences and then a PhD at University of Toronto in diabetes. And then I kind of went to the business world, solving big, messy, complex, largely business problems with BCG. Became faculty at our business school here in Toronto, teaching in health sector strategy. Teaching a course called Healthcare Innovation. And then I went to Mars, which is the innovation hub in Toronto, where I led our kind of health system innovation platform. Instead of innovating on startups, actually innovating at the level of big health systems and hospitals to help them, have capacity to adapt innovation. I'm faculty at Singularity. And then I went to the Netherlands for a year and helped build a health innovation school for the country there. I think very similar to what you're doing here. And actually Marlies was faculty for us in the Netherlands. And then now I kind of came back to Canada and I'm with SE Health. So just quickly, so you anchor a bit of, my remarks with what I wake up every day and do. So SE Health is St. Elizabeth Healthcare. We're a 110-year-old organization in Canada that really, our mission is to bring hope and happiness to Canadians' lives. But we focus mostly on older adults and keeping them healthy at home. We've got 5 kind of areas we focus to do that: home care, buildings, working with caregivers, etc. So, this organization has been around a long time, and most people in the market would say, it's a very innovative organization. So, for example, we were the first to ever treat people with HIV in the community. We were the first to do home chemotherapy and many, many other kind of pioneering things. But, I would say a lot of that was just a bit of the culture of the organization. And, if people had an idea, they did it, but it wasn't kind of a systematic methodology. And so, given how much change is coming to healthcare, like every other health organization, it was time for us to kind of really formalize an approach to actually creating the future instead of, fumbling our way through it with luck. And so we call our team the Futures team. So I kind of take it a little bit beyond innovation because we're not really innovating on today's models, but really designing the future and creating the future and protecting the future. And we focus everything in our methodology on older adults in their homes and communities. So, to be able to kind of innovate for the future, you need to have a point of view on where do you want to go? And so, we've got a bit of a normative view of what the future holds. And here's just like a quick kind of way we at least frame it, me as a futurist. So, we clearly are going through a pretty big inflection, some call it a paradigm shift of 150, 200 years of a model that was really designed around the system, around the payer, around the doctors, around the hospitals, around the health providers. And and around being a cost center, to, that kind of not working for us anymore, given people are alive, they're alive longer with a lot of kind of complexities. So things are shifting. And so there's three big forces we would say that are really pushing us faster to this future. And the first one that really 150, 200 years of medicine never had to contend with was this new power of patients and families. And Topol really articulated in this book, The Patient Will See You Now. And so, we never had to design where there's at least, some voice, let alone an equal voice of the person who has the biggest stake in all the work we do. So that's a big propelling force. The other big force is we're out of money. I mean, pick a health system. They're all broke. They've always been, but it's really bad right now. And so scarcity is a really good time to rebase or innovate. Because we've always been able to just add more money to the system, and there's no jurisdiction anywhere that can do that anymore. And I'd say the third big force is there's now technology to do something about it. And so these kind of three things coming together at the same time is a reason why, this school has 400 people registered, why, all of us are kind of scrambling to help create the future, because it's unprecedented, honestly, in more than 2 centuries of medicine. So just on technology, I mean, the way we try to think about technology is, this is kind of a timeline going back 2,500 years to Hippocrates of, pretty major dislocations that were enabled in healthcare from either tech innovation or policy innovation that really changed the game. They changed how we understand our bodies, how we, think about illness and diagnosis and treatment. But the thing is, every one of these until now, and, these have brought pretty big progress. They've participated in extending life, 30 or 50 years now. They're all been analog, right? And when things are analog, that means the more you want to get them to other people, you can only scale linearly. You just keep adding more dollars, more demand, more dollars, more demand, more analog capital and infrastructure. And then digital kind of came on the scene in healthcare only about a decade ago. And, the different thing about digital is digital scales exponentially because it's based on software. And now you've got, both the software layer underpinning all of the past and kind of turbo boosting the progress, the scale, the reach. And it allows you to design completely different models of care that weren't even contemplated when we're in a largely analog model. And so the new icons that will be on this slide, when our kids are running this session, are these modalities. And as a faculty at Singularity, we track these 10 exponentials. And they're exponentials because they're all underpinned by software, which means they're going to, progress at a doubling speed of, anywhere from a few months to 18 months, unlike anything we've seen in medicine before. And so, if you're going to start to integrate some of these types of tools into the new models of care, that's going to need a whole design and innovation methodology, because you don't just insert them into an old model of care. And so that's kind of a bit of the approach we take thinking about the future. So kind of put that all together, if we look at what the future of health holds, we narrow it down to these 6 shifts. And I won't have time to go through them. I think they're pretty intuitive. But, from reactive, timing of care to proactive, preventative, and even now predictive, completely different way to design services when you're predicting the illness instead of treating it. Much more precise, so from kind of a crude analog one-size-fits-all to highly personalized, highly intelligent. A modality shift, which is the location of where services are received. A massive decentralization out of buildings and institutions and clinics into, either decentralizing or, eventually kind of an omni-channel experience where patients and families can pick the best channel to access their services, and place is agnostic to getting access to care. A duration shift from being highly episodic and intermittent, 7-minute visits, a diagnostic for once you can only do it versus continuous and integrated. A massive power shift, unlike we've seen, to what I call people-powered health. And then finally, and which to me is this unfinished business of Canadian healthcare, is a business model shift from designing everything around optimizing for costs, inputs, activities, et cetera, to actually optimizing for the results, the health. So this is a lot of change. And I think, you now add the digital piece, and this is kind of the change that's coming to healthcare. So at Singularity, we kind of frame our view of the future around these 6 Ds of exponential development, which says once you digitize previously analog things like doctor visits, like data sharing, and you eliminate the fax machine and CDs and pagers and all that stuff, now you get onto the exponential curve where you disrupt previous models, previous entities, you dematerialize, so physical things go away, including labor, buildings, units, machines. When you do that, now you can demonetize because most of the cost in healthcare is tied up in labor and capital and buildings, and then you democratize. So this is the future we're designing for, and you need pretty sophisticated methodology to prepare for that. And so, given where we are in Canada, where we're just at the of digitized, we think because we're humans, we can only, we evolved linearly and locally, right? To change something in our fitness, we had to have a generation of, having a kid and then they survive. And so we don't understand how exponential will happen. And in Canada, because it's taken so long to get to dig, we think it's going to be another 30, 40 years of development. And it's just fundamentally not true because once you go, it goes. And I think this is this shift we're anticipating. The good thing about being so behind in Canada is we can already see other jurisdictions that are already kind of a little bit more up the curve. And so, Kaiser Permanente, the big health system in California, they're now at about 60% of all interactions between any of their providers and any of their patients. It does not require the person and the clinician to be in the same time and place. And that's just going to grow to probably 80%, and we're sitting at about 0.25% in Canada. And if you take rural and remote parts of Canada, we're probably at about, 0. So, we've got a way to go, but it'll pop. Just to show you, what is coming and what can happen, you might have heard of, there's many players in China that are really harnessing these signals. But Ping An Good Doctor is kind of the one I love to talk about. So this kind of started as an AI-assisted medical system. So kind of a digital-first primary care model 3 years ago for about $40 to $100 a month, which is what I spend on Spotify. And I probably spend this much in a week at Starbucks or Timmy's these days. In 3 years, they're now at about 300 million users actively on the registered. That's a third of all people in China on the internet. 25 million, but actually they just released their 6-month data. They're at 60 million a month are using this as their primary care model. And then just look at their network, right? This is not all digital. They've got, their own in-house docs, a lot of partnerships, 3,000 hospitals. I don't even think we have 3,000 hospitals in Canada. 15,000 pharmacies, and it goes on and on, 1-hour drug delivery, et cetera. This will just be normal, right? And then, that's hard for us to see that. And so we get stuck kind of trying to optimize the current when these new models are coming. Just another one to give you an idea of how fast this scale can work. You probably have followed Butterfly, which is just a mobile ultrasound. So this little tiny company, the first medical class in a med school in the US at their white coat ceremony, there's no more giving away the stethoscope. That's like kind of analog, dumb device, which Eric Topol predicted that will not be what doctors, wear or nurses. But every graduate got a Butterfly mobile ultrasound crossing the stage. And so just to show you the scale, so it took 50 years of ultrasound technology to get to 500,000 units around the world. Butterfly will be at that number in 2 years. Okay, this is what we're talking about. So now we look at healthcare and we say, oh, wow, the speed of getting stuff that really works for people and changes their game, whether that's the radio or the television or the web or, Angry Birds, it's just getting faster and faster, right? And these curves, if you add other modalities like voice assistants, are penetrating faster than smartphones did. And then you look at all the data in healthcare that, pick a country, any context, the average between published evidence that this should be the standard of care, that it's superior to whatever was before, to standard of care full practice is about 17 years. And that's just not going to work, at this velocity, particularly when you've got both a consumer pull at a very, very low price point. And healthcare is now global. You don't actually need this stuff in your backyard to get most of your needs met. And so, you know, we worry about a statement like this, which Jack Welch made. This was the former CEO of GE, you know, maybe 20 years ago. And that was true 20 years ago, but it's very, very true now, because that velocity is faster than, you know, our internal velocities in healthcare, whereas other industries have actually figured out how to kind of keep up with, or at least try to keep up with, the pace of change. You know, we're the most behind. So this is a great piece of work that Accenture did, and everybody's done these, you know, so these are all the global core sectors. The horizontal axis is how susceptible they are to disruption. And reminder, what disruption means is the incumbents who used to have everything kind of locked up, distribution, access to patients or customers, clinicians, know-how, knowledge, data, funding, you know, they get displaced by something else quickly. And then, you know, the y-axis is how much has happened already today in the kind of the digital economy. And, oh, look who shows up in the bottom right corner. You know, and like this year, actually, until a year ago, there were two industries left that hadn't kind of caught up to the digital age, us and construction. And construction's now a digital company. It's a digital sector. All right, so we're next. And that's kind of what we're all preparing for. And so what we push for on our futures team, and where you really need a design approach, you know, is not when you're just kind of trying to tweak at the margins with, you know, new methods and new models, but you're really changing business model. And that's kind of what the team asked me to talk about. So just so we understand, what do we mean by business model, right? So the reality is, you know, in any organization, no organization's life cycle, you know, will outlast if its business model, you know, life cycle runs out, right? So if your business model no longer works, think Blockbuster or Kodak or Sears or HBC or whatever, you know, either you cease to exist or you evolve your business model. Healthcare hasn't actually had to change its business model in 150 years, right? So this capability to do this is just, it's not like in our DNA. You need a methodology. And so, you know, many definitions of business model, I like to use the one from Business Innovation Factory. It's just your story of how does your organization create value, deliver that value, and capture that value. And I'm going to come back to that one. Okay, so now remember I said no organization will last if its business model can't keep up. And so, you know, you then read these headlines, and I collect headlines of the, you know, the end of hospitals. This is like a pastime of every journalist. You know, tear them down. Are they obsolete? Goodbye hospitals. Hello hospitals. Hello phone hospitals. You know, pick a headline. And I think the answer is no. Obviously, this entity doesn't go away, but none of these institutions will be a repeat of what they've been in the past. They will have to reinvent their business model. So just, you know, a couple examples. In Pennsylvania, I was like, I couldn't believe it at first when UPenn Medical Center announced like they're building 3 new hospitals. I was like, what? But it turns out, you know, there's no new beds. There's no new buildings. Right, so they're building the capacity to treat the volume of 3 hospitals in a completely kind of decentralized and digital model. Now, this is the kind of reinvention that we're talking about, and you can't do that using kind of traditional kind of top-down type methods. You know, I love to collect, you know, we get probably 5 or 10 startups a week pitching to us, and they say, oh, I'm the Airbnb for X, I'm the YouTube of Y, I'm the Instagram for this. So we're stealing business models from other industries that have already been reinvented, and we're just taking them into healthcare, and the list goes on and on. I keep a little gallery of these, but these are helpful to help you kind of quickly get going with your framework and when you're designing a new model for healthcare. Well, you know, we can all, as the incumbents, try to do this, and we will, and we all have our innovation teams, but you know, I worry, or I think about all these other major tech giants and brands and other entities that also have to reinvent their business model because their business model doesn't, you know, make sense, that are now declaring healthcare as their new major. And I have to add 2 new logos to my slide as of last week. Hooters. You guys know Hooters? Do you have that over there? So they're now getting into biotech. And Fujifilm is doing like an Ebola vaccine, right? So, and then Black & Decker, I'll talk about, I think, in just a second. So, I'm struck when, you see this slide of these, 4 or 5 new entrants who have no assets, right? Uber is the biggest taxi company, owns no fleet. Airbnb surpassed Hilton, which has been around for 75 years in terms of number of rooms. And then I just wonder who is going to be that for healthcare, because it is coming, right? And maybe Canada will have its version, but I have a few hypotheses. I don't know if you guys saw. So this is just 1 week of news last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. So Walmart, 3 things. 1, they had not launched Walmart Health. So a fully integrated primary care center. They plan to open 1,200 of them. There's a Walmart within every 12 miles. They know if they're going to become, and their CEO has said, we want to be the #1 healthcare provider in the United States. They know that if they're going to do that, there's no way they can count on hiring talent from other people preparing that talent. So they've now basically creating a whole health education platform to upskill their workers to become pharmacists, nurses, whatever they want to be, for $1 a day. And they're the 3rd biggest employer in the whole world, right? So they've got the talent ready to go. And then Sam's Club, their kind of Costco of Walmart, just launched a membership benefit for kind of unlimited telemedicine, right? As part of a Sam's Club membership. So whether your health system decides to do this or not, there's a pretty good value prop that Walmart will have. Amazon, we've all been waiting. They launched Amazon Care 2 weeks ago. Right now for all their employees, no physical clinics. Either you get virtual care, text, or a home visit from doctors or nurses. And then, Best Buy launched their Geek Squad will now go into your house of your mother or your grandma and outfit it all out for independent living for home care. So they're now in home care. And then Black & Decker, that makes drills and, tools, has just launched a home care robot, their own brand, right? This is just in a week of progress. So it's coming whether, we want it to or not. So the challenge is, what do you do about it? I wanted to do a little fun exercise, but I think we're going to keep going so we can get into discussion if we need to. But when I was in the Netherlands, we created like a slot machine of new business models. So if you want, maybe you can copy this, Ali or Josh, and put it into the chat. So you just kind of click on it and you play around. Maybe I'll do it really quickly for you guys. No, I won't. I'm going to go back. You play around with new business models in healthcare by just mixing and matching all the different things that are out there. Can you see my screen? Okay, I just have to close this. Sorry, I'm playing around too much here. 1 sec. Okay, so the future of healthcare, is definitely then innovation, which is around taking what, assets and capabilities you used to have, reconstituting them and repositioning them for the new thing, the new value you want to create. So, what do we mean by innovation? So this is like one thing I try to really drive home, because I find different places are using the word innovation to describe activities that aren't really innovation. So I can't seem to see my screen right now.
I see match.com for pharmacy.
Okay. So I stole this slide from Kaiser Permanente, and I know Marlies has used it a couple times, around the distinction between when are you in an innovation space versus an improvement space. And this idea that whatever your current state was, to lift yourself up to some new value, that's innovation, because you're dismantling the old and putting it back together using a design methodology. That first bit is like the worst, best place of the new thing. It's kind of iPhone 1, right? And then the blue is improvement. You just keep getting it better and better. That's iPhone 10, 11, and whatever, 30. And so they're very different methodologies, to do the first task versus the second task. I used to live in Europe, and they love high jump. So I used to also use this metaphor, right? If the ways we were ever to get higher high jump, new leaps came up, the scissors and the Western rolled and the straddled and the Fosbury flop. For every leap, then like lots of things were done in between around, shoes or the pole or steroids or like whatever. So that's kind of the distinction of, I frame the two. A more academic one that PISEC developed, to help kind of communicate this to healthcare people who interchangeably use these words, is it kind of when you're at the kind of lower end of this slide, doing things no one's done before, no one else is doing, or at a minimum in healthcare, stealing from other industries. Now you're in innovation. Anything before that, the methods of improvement, should be enough to get you there. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. So kind of what would that look like if you were kind of going to put that into practice and decide, what kind of projects you're going to apply to this design lab? At our group at St. Eliz, we really try to focus our innovation work on, really tough, nutty, messy stuff. So either are we changing the business model significantly relative to what's the core today, or are we bringing a new capability to the organization that is new to the org or new to the world? And that's kind of, what we call Horizon 2 or Horizon 3 innovation. This is from McKinsey, which really needs very different methods and approaches, and we use a human-centered design approach. So just kind of last thing about human-centered design, and how it fits into business model innovation. So remember I said, a business model is this story of how does your organization create value, deliver value, and capture value. Well, you can link that really nicely to the IDEO kind of design framework that says, when you're doing innovation work, you kind of have to work on 3 planes at the same time. Is it desirable? So, does a human want it? Is it viable? Can our org do it? And is it feasible? Do we have the technology or the processes capabilities? So, that's kind of what a business model is. So when we do our work, we ask first, can we create value? Are we going to unlock that big lift by designing something better than was there before and solving real human needs? Okay. At the same time, can our org do it? That's viability. And then can we deliver it? That's feasibility. And then can we capture value? That's, what's your revenue model to make it sustainable? So we always think design is only about the desirability. It's not. You got to be doing all 3 kind of at the same time. And that's kind of where human-centered design like loops through all of these continuously at the same time. A capability to do this is very, very hard. It's just not the normal skill set in healthcare. You need to be like chew gum and walk at the same time and be able to balance questions you're asking in each of these 3 areas. And so just kind of why is it so hard? I also like to kind of frame the type of problems you're solving when you're solving messy healthcare problems or innovating. They're not the same kind of problems that the normal toolkit in healthcare solves. So, this is a good framework to say, these different topology of problems, when you're in that kind of complex zone down the middle, that's when you really need this kind of design methodology, because it allows you to systematically work through all the complexity and all the variables in a very emergent way, right? So, this I think is a health system. I forget which one. Like, this stuff is complex. We've been used to solving problems in healthcare in a very linear way, right? So the red curve is a typical linear methodology. This is what we did in consulting when I was at BCG or KPMG, where, you just say, okay, top down, I'm going to have a hypothesis. I'm going to go get the data to prove or disprove my hypothesis. And I'm just going to keep learning more. And then boom, I'm going to close the uncertainty and here's the answer. And I'm going to predict the answer based on the past. Well, design says, there's no way you're going to start with a hypothesis because you won't even understand the problem until you start solving the problem. And you might have, a few parallel, like, I know the answer, I don't know the answer. I got it, I don't. That's where prototyping. So very, very different methodology. So you're on for a treat to get some crack coaches, guiding you through this methodology at scale. And so I welcome you to enjoy the process, learn from it, and just really stick to, why are you doing this in the first place? What messy problems are you there to solve? Because life's too short to solve little problems in healthcare anymore. All right, I'm going to stop there and maybe I'll take some questions if there's time.
Thank you, Zayna. That was amazing, as always. One question Geraldine's asking is, when we're dealing with very entrenched management structures, how do we convince them of possibilities? And kind of related to kind of Marley's question, how do we nudge people and wake them up to start thinking about new service models in the future?
I mean, I think everyone's probably at a different stage of maturity of their own in-house innovation model. So it depends where you're at. So if you're very early starting out, and you're kind of like Dead Poets Society, like you're in the cave at night and you all get it, but no one understands you. I think then you just, whoever is the executive sponsor that chose to set up the innovation capability, I would suggest have one or two big dot projects that you've been mandated to solve, focus only on those, and involve on your team as many people from the organization as you can. And don't even bother with the naysayers or those who don't get it, because get results and you'll be attracted like a magnet, to you. I think as you get more mature, people are more aware, and then they're like, oh, what is this? And they want to know more. I think things like what you're doing is exactly the right thing, which is what we call capacity building. You're kind of, inviting people in a low risk way, and then letting them apply what you're teaching to a real project they're working on. Then they'll kind of build the muscle memory then to take on some bigger stuff. So hopefully that's kind of helpful.
Thanks, Zayna. I really like this next question from Patrick. He says, how do we balance innovation in a society like ours in Canada, where we're very proud of our healthcare system, but compared to US, which is fully privatized? And how do we, could you speak to that?
I fully disagree with some dot that gets connected between innovate and private. They have nothing to do with each other. I don't know why Canadians do that. Maybe because we mentioned technology. Private agents are required for pretty much all of Canadian healthcare. We have almost 100% private delivery. So no, there's no conflict. There's no imbalance. I mean, I think maybe if I would spin that, what I hear a lot is we're very risk averse. So as soon as anything new gets tried, somebody finds the one edge case that, didn't work. And then they're like, oh, stop doing that, and I think that's a mindset in Canada, I think. And I think because the US is so messed up, we think, we don't really have a burning platform. But I tell you, I hang out in the rest of the world, and I feel like we're in the Stone Ages in Canada. I don't know why we have debates about things that, like, my metaphor is like, I go to conferences and they're debating like things. It's like, okay, you're talking about your horse and buggy, and like, oh, is it the saddle? Is it the wheels? I'm like, and the driverless car is driving by. Right. So I'm kind of just trying to wake people up that there is a better way and it works. And like, we got to try. And guess what? If we don't, Canadians are going to piece it together, and it won't be with Canadian players, unfortunately.
I love that. And I want to take more questions, but we're really short on time. So Josh and Aaron, I'm going to give it back to you. And again, thank you, Zayna, for this amazing conversation. Everyone, we have put Zayna's hashtag, her Twitter handle. Please follow her. She's she's always posting very interesting and futuristic things. And Josh and Aaron, over to you guys.
Thanks, Ali. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to have a breakout session, and this is for a couple of reasons. First of all, because we have nearly 300 people on this line, and we want to give you guys as much chance as you can to make some connections. So jump into this room, we'll get it all organized for you, and introduce yourself, say where you're from, and then think about and talk about how ready is your organization to innovate. I mean, are you a part of that horse and buggy crowd organization that's still trying to, worrying about the saddle that Zayna was talking about? Or do you have some movement in your organization you think they're ready to make that big leap, that new high jump that she was mentioning? So we'll send you into your rooms. You have 5 minutes to talk about that, and then we'll pull you back in. See you in a bit.
lot of the time we end up being unable to take things apart and then put them back together in a way that is cost effective or perceived as cost effective. Lena and Alicia, are you guys able to unmute?
So we're all just coming kind of back into the room. I hope you had a chance to share some of your
Thank
ideas.
you.
All right. Some of the things I heard is that I think the horse and buggy comment really resonated, and a lot of people feel like that's where they're dwelling in their organizations. Did anybody else hear anything that? What was the general consensus? Throw it in the chat box where you think that people are sitting. And while you're doing that, we're going to just go through a few more kind of basic things about design thinking. So, Josh, I am not able to forward the slides yet. There we are. Okay, so what we're going to do is the design thinking process is typically embedded with 5 phases. Now, these phases are circular, and sometimes you'll see them called different things, but they essentially talk about understanding your user, deciding where you're going to, defining your problem, ideating on that, and then building and testing a real solution with real users. But at the foundation of this, before anything, is really about the mindset and culture of your team and the people that you're working with to move this process forward. So and you might ask, what kind of mindset? Well, to start off with, you have to start with curiosity. Curiosity is key. If you think you know something for sure, that's a huge red flag if you haven't asked any questions that you're maybe starting with the wrong mindset. There's also the idea that design thinking can find multiple solutions, and that we just need to use a trial and error or test and fail forward to find which of those solutions would work best at solving the human-centered problem. And really, when you have that fail forward kind of approach, the meaningful solutions rise to the top just naturally, because you're always searching for the next thing, not the thing that went wrong before. And yeah, Josh, can you forward again? I can't forward it. Thanks. So as we get into our design thinking process, we're going to hear from more amazing speakers. Next week, we're going to be hearing from Paolo Corre, and he's the Director of Service Design and User Insight at St. Elizabeth Health in Ontario. Paolo's going to help us understand how we can get to understand the people and the players and the problems in a more intimate way.
You're controlling the screen now, Aaron.
I don't know what's going on.
You're going the wrong direction. That's
I'm not even touching it. And okay, so
in week 3, we've got Andrew Sue. If you follow our Twitter, you've probably seen some things from him, because we are a big fan of his. He's the strategic advisor at the Health Design Lab for Emily Carr University of Art and Design, and he's going to help us make mapping great again. That joke will make much more sense on the actual day. We're going to be really around synchronizing information. How do we understand or better understand our user's journey and take everything that we learned from, the empathy stage and put it in a place where it's easy to understand and to visualize.
Yeah, so then after that, we're going to talk with Annie Valdez. Now, Annie is like a guru of design. She's the principal and founder of Design Tugboat, and she was also a senior designer with IDEO. So, she lived in the Church of Design for a while. She's going to talk about creativity and how we can kind of untap our inner Da Vinci's. And this is often the scariest part of people who are looking to use design in healthcare. So we're really looking forward to her presentation.
And in week 5, we have Robin. I believe he's worked with Marlies on our team, and as well as he's met Zayna, where he's a design thinker at Radboud UMC, the Reshape and Innovation Center in the Netherlands. And he's a prototyping rock star. He's going to fill you in about all the ways you can make your innovation kind of come alive and let your user experience it in a minimal viable way, of course, or we like to say MVP.
After that, we're going to speak with our fearless leader, Marlies van Dijk. She is the leader and founder of the Design Lab, and her superpower is she is an amazing bullshit detector. And I'm not joking you. She is going to be able to tell you, how to build the right team, how to look for red flags, and how to confront those great big bad elephants that come into the room.
And last, but most certainly not least, we have Alika Lafontaine. He's an anesthesiologist, as well as he's the North Alberta Medical Director for Indigenous Health. And he knows that human-centered design starts with stories. And we've brought Alika in for him to share some stories with all of you. But really, everyone's like, okay, we got design thinking and human-centered design. It all sounds really, really fabulous. But where do we start? What's step 1 to getting into the process? And we always start with that question, that problem statement. What is it that we want to work on? And we frame it this way. It's into how might we's. So got a couple examples of how projects on our team have started. So this one was done by Ali with the support of the Design Lab. It was how might we increase access to addiction and mental health service for kids living in Medicine Hat. The next problem that we talked about that our team has worked on, and this is a project that I did, and it's really close to my heart because I do love food, it was, how might we improve the food for our residents at Care West in long-term care facilities in the city of Calgary? So our problems really all start with this reframe, and that's kind of where we're going to get you guys to start.
That's right. So we started. We start with how might we, because what it really does is it changes a problem into an opportunity just with those 3 little words. So for example, when we started thinking about what we were going to do with virtual design school, our problem was that online learning is boring as F. And we wanted to know, how might we make virtual design school fun and engaging? So just by reframing it into something, we're looking for the opportunities. So the how talks about how it just indicates that it's possible. And then the might talks about, it might be possible, it might not, but it's okay either way. We're going to find those different opportunities. And then the we is just that we're in this together. This is not one thing that one person has to solve, but rather your team or your group, we're all working in this together. It doesn't all have to come from one person. So for next week, what we would like to do is we'd really like you guys to, first of all, I hope everybody has received the workbook and has printed it out. And for your first activity for homework is to turn your problem into a how might we. And we've created a few questions for you so you can think about some of the parameters, some of the goals, some of the ways that you can ensure failure, and then flipping those ways to ensure failure so that you can turn them into success. And so what we would like you to do is to print out this page, fill it in according to your problem, and then take a picture of it and tweet us. Because, and I'm going to point out here, last time we got lots of typed up stuff, lots of perfect drafts. We're not looking for that. We're looking for your working copy. And yeah, we're going to pick out some of our favorites, some of the problems that really pull us, and share them with you next week. So for the rest of the, Josh, can you forward, please? For
Yeah,
the,
you should.
So for if you take nothing away from today, we hope that you understand that design thinking is not a linear process, it's circular. It can be entered and exited at any point, and you can always go back to tweak on the things that you didn't do right the first time. We want you to really, really understand that it all starts with curiosity. Curiosity about whether this is the right problem, curiosity about the users involved, and curiosity about the human nature involved in the problem. And we want to let you know, you're all designers now. I mean, go out there with a beginner's mindset, get your feet on the ground, and think about what kind of problems you want to solve.
So next week, like we mentioned before, we're going to be talking to Paulo from SE Health, and he's really going to be talking to us about empathy, that first stage kind of in this design thinking process. I remind you guys, don't forget to join early, just a little bit early. There's people on like an hour early, so you don't have to be that early. So we can get started right at 10 o'clock. We like to be punctual, even though Marliese on our team isn't always punctual, but that's okay. We love her anyways. And again, so you guys do have a copy of our workbook. You need any help with it, send us a tweet, an email, a DM, go through your problem, reframe it into a how might we, and share it with the group. That's it, folks. I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to send a huge shout out to Zayna. Fantastic presentation as always. We love having you here. And that's it, everybody.
That's it. See you later, guys.
Need like that closing music. Do 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 do.
What is that? The Addams Family? No.
I
You
know.
need the Jeopardy music. That's what
The Jeopardy music.
it is.
Okay,